Welcome to the PropTech Podcast. It's Kylie Davis here, and I'm delighted to be your host as we explore the brave new world where technology and real estate collide. I passionately believe we need to create and grow a sense of community between the innovators and real estate agents, and sharing our stories is a great way to do that. Now, the aim of each episode is to introduce listeners to a PropTech innovator who is pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and to explore the issues and challenges raised by the technology and how they can create amazing property experiences. And my guest in this episode is the wonderful Nigel Dalton, one of real estate's original big thinkers. Now, most of us know him from his days at realestate.com.au, where he led the REA Labs Project. But he has recently joined software consultancy ThoughtWorks, expanding his background and training as a social scientist into a much more roving brief. Now, in every episode of the PropTech Podcast, we ask our guests what they think the next 5 years will hold for the property industry. But in this podcast, Nigel gives us an in-depth look at the three major trends that are driving the future of real estate. And believe it or not, it doesn't really involve blockchain, AI, or big data. Instead, the future of real estate looks a lot more human. So here to tell us all about it, Nigel Dalton, welcome to the PropTech Podcast.
I'm delighted to be here. It's been some time since I've talked about PropTech. I think about PropTech all the time. It's impossible not to in this 21st century, is it?
I know. So tell me, what have you been up to since leaving REA? How was your COVID?
Well, I had a very poor retirement, that's for sure. I left REA and wow, sad to leave research and development in particular. But I had a book in mind, a book about productivity, which I'd been thinking about as an idea after watching REA grow over 8 or 9 years, going, there must be a formula to this.
Yeah.
And reflecting on the other things I've done, startups and scale-ups. And I said, I think I recognize the formula. So immediately set out to write the book, got about 25,000 words into it last Christmas, last summer, remember the pre-COVID summer.
Yeah.
And a very kind offer came to come and work for a company called ThoughtWorks, who are known in the world as software developers, data people, so really nerdy nerds.
Yep.
And they were looking for a bit of a kind of storyteller, social scientist. And my work fits their work really nicely. And they're at that overlap, a bit like you, the overlap between technology and the real world and people and humans, I think is the most interesting place you could be. And they said, well, come there. And I said, okay. And what a bit of luck with COVID coming in straight after that. And here we are locked down in Australia.
So ThoughtWorks doesn't just do real estate or property. It's got a bigger, broader brief, or?
Oh, it barely does real estate or property. Okay. We are largely, we are interestingly a big supplier to the REA group. I've known them for a long time. But they've built software for banks. They built software for telecom companies. They built software for a lot of work in the neobank sector, which is sort of adjacent. The fintech is the kind of sister of PropTech, really.
Yep.
A ton of work in those newly emerging kind of businesses in Australia, things like Tyro and all the cool kids.
All the cool banking kids.
Yeah, really disrupting, getting a mortgage and gee, that's a fascinating sector. And it's pretty hard in Melbourne to ignore PropTech. It's an active community, a good online community. We've got people like Property Exchange Australia in town who got some pretty big ambitions and have come a long way. So
shout out to Pixar.
You can't have a beer in this town without talking PropTech.
Yeah. So you have always been someone who's had your eye on the future of real estate. Where do you think we're going next? Like, what are the big trends, or what are you seeing out there?
Well, the last year certainly accelerated all the things. And I think if you had a weakness going into 2020, that probably got found out, to be honest. If you had an organizational culture issue or you had a technology investment issue, if your team couldn't work remotely in February 2020, you were about to find out the pain of that.
There were a lot of people paddling very, very quickly.
Yeah, just the simplest of things, getting onto the internet. Collaborating with each other in a way other than face-to-face. And a lot of businesses have solved those problems in the past, but not too many necessarily in the property industry. So everyone found that as the challenge. And here we are all this time later. I've done a lot of reading in lockdown. That's been the magnificent part of it.
Yep.
One of my favorite books, Post-Corona by Scott Galloway. So he wrote a great book called The Four, which is about the four horsemen of the apocalypse: Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, and their impact on all of us, whether it's PropTech or whether it's other things. Updated it after reflecting on COVID as to how that had happened. And part of his opening chapter, he makes this an astonishing statistic that, so you think about retail as a typical industry of not being terribly technological, a lot of complaining about the internet and how it's stealing all the customers and all those things, really changing the way retail was done. Retail is a tiny fraction online. You would think from Jerry Harvey that 90% of retail had moved online and all the rich folk are going broke because nobody turned up into their shops anymore. Well, that's capital BS, basically, because in America, 16% of retail spend was online as at a year ago. Just 16%.
Only 16.
And it was growing at a glacial 1% a year.
Wow.
Here's the interesting thing. In the next 10 weeks after COVID hit America, March, April, it grew from 16% to 28% of all online spend. All spend was done online. So it grew basically 10 years in 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Do you think it's going to go back? Are people going to stop buying, who gives a crap toilet paper online or all of those kind of things? Do you think they're going to go back to?
No,
I don't. I think habits got changed.
I think in the real estate industry, what I have been warning about is this risk of a bungee stretch that we kind of adopted a whole bunch of tech while we were in that lockdown period. But as things ease up, there's going to be a desire for it to be, but do we really need to do some of it? And that kind of a bit of a ping.
That's going to define 2021's haves and have-nots. Now, the challenge is, of course, I think the real estate industry is pretty renowned for kind of living for the now, not great at putting money aside in good times for later on for investment. That might be an individual behavioural description. It might be an organisational behavioural description.
I think it's generally accepted.
And some investment is required to master this thing. And so some people are going to use their own biases to go, well, none of my customers are on the internet. They don't want to know those things. And my business is bricks and mortar. And it's important right now to think about the world, the context that we're in, and then figure it out for yourself where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I do believe there are some mega trends that have been shown up through COVID that are going to really be felt down on High Street, Noosa, in the real estate agency office there, that they're inescapable, some of which are going to be tough to deal with and some of which are tremendous opportunities. And I look around the industry and the people I know, I think there's still a lot of people, and I need to introduce my Abyssinian at this point, who is determined to stay online with me on my desk.
That's right. I have a schnauzer asleep on my toes.
That's becoming a part of our lives, hasn't it, along the way? But you really, it's time to face into these mega trends and figure out
what are they?
What's
Let's
good for
unpack
you.
them. Yep.
So number one, I try to encourage people to think about population as a mega trend. We're pretty like that. It fundamentally has driven our industry for a very long time. Yep. Who are the people? Where are they demographically? Yep. How old are they?
Yep.
Now, if we think through to 2030, that's going to change dramatically. If you looked at a population pyramid, those graphs you did at school or uni, with kind of women on the right and men on the left, it used to be shaped like a big fat triangle back in 1980. And that
Shoulder
was
pad
lots of young people, people under the age of 30. And that was grand for people like me going, I have plenty of taxes to support my old age from those people. That'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they've all moved through and we have not been replacing the children. So now it's shaped like a kind of got a big bulge in the middle with a skinny bottom and a skinny top. And it's
Are we talking hourglass?
Yeah, it's an hourglass. Okay. Well, kind of not skinny. And there's reverse hourglass. It's kind of pear-shaped, perhaps, we might say. Now, that's interesting as at 2020, but you go through to 2050 2050 as the long game here. And I know most of you people are not really thinking about that far, maybe 2030. And goodness me, that bulge has moved towards retirement. So we talk about boomers as a thing, and tech for boomers is something I work on. So boomer tech, hashtag. But boomer town is what real estate agents need to think about, because I love this simple statistic, a book by Liz Allen, who last year, The Future of Us, which is the future of Australia's population, and talking about different scenarios of immigration. And goodness me, if we don't allow immigration, then the tax base of this country is in terrible shape. And today's 30-year-olds are going to have miserable retirements, I can tell you that now. But they won't own houses in the same numbers. So what I'd love, the number one 5-year cohort of human beings in Australia, sort of aged, 80 to 85, 60 to 65, women 80 to 85 will be running Australia in 2050. That will be the single largest 5-year age cohort.
That could be me. Why am I? Because we're the only ones left.
You will have a voice, and you will be powerful, and you're going to have needs. And so
money.
we look at what's happening in communities, which, let's face it, real estate agents basically build communities. It's not the houses, it's the communities. And that's why they're part of communities, and why it's always been a neighborhood thing. That, very difficult to build these brands bigger than a neighborhood, because that's as far as you kind of look. People don't move multiple postal codes away that often.
No.
And what are the needs of those people? I take someone chatting to the director of Flinders Hospital in Adelaide, for example. They have one single symptom of an aging population that they're going to need to look at in their strategic plan in the next 20 years. What do you reckon is the biggest medical crisis and Adelaide has the oldest population profile today. It's a beautiful place to retire, obviously. What do you reckon the number one thing they're planning for is?
Dementia?
No. Interestingly, no. I mean, dementia is a problem. In New Zealand, it's rife. I have personal experience with it. Something like 20% of people over 75.
Yeah.
No, dementia doesn't drive the level of cost in the healthcare system.
Oh, okay.
That this problem does.
Oh, lack of technology and handoff of data.
No, loneliness.
No? Oh, wow.
So loneliness and its connection to illness and mental health is massive. And so I see this huge role in the world of building communities, of connecting those communities. Now, it's going to help along the way. Imagine you're a real estate agent and this is in 20 years' time. You've noticed the aging of your neighborhood. If you're a property manager, do you know what you need to do? You need to extend your mind as to what property management is about. To maybe thinking about helping the community solve loneliness with connection between people. Maybe think about supplying nursing services. Why wouldn't a real estate agent, with some brilliant home technology like Internet of Things type of devices, and I'm delighted to say my current employer, ThoughtWorks, made some amazing stuff for an English company called MySense. 5 sensors in the home could track the health of an elderly person and keep them in their home longer. But this is like extended property management by definition. Now, I run into property managers. Far too many of them just want to collect the rent, Kylie. That's the truth of it. Take their commission. I think the future thinkers are going to go, how can I automate the homes of people in my community with Internet of Things device, one in the bed, one in the toilet, so you know when it's flushing. That's really important. One on the lounge, one on the TV, and one at the front door. Between those 5 and the data that you were talking about that flows out of those sensors, you can pretty well judge the health and condition of that person. Because
at the moment you can get, we had this for my dad, you can get like a thing that goes around their neck, and if they go down or if they disappear or, it sends off a beep and it does that. But they're actually really awkward and uncomfortable.
How does your dad feel about that?
Like, well, my he has dad dementia, so he just did what he was told, but not that he knew to push the buttons. If anything
Well, my mum had
was a problem there,
and the same, and like refused to wear it, and then now my dad, who doesn't, lives in the home on his own, is too proud to do it. As a kid, as one of the 3 boys, the children, would I pay $100 a month for a subscription to a real estate agent in the neighbourhood, which is, you think of what businesses are distributed around every neighbourhood of New Zealand in this case.
Yeah.
Well, real estate agents are.
Yeah, definitely.
Would I pay a subscription to them and to have a service where they can hire someone on a bike to whip around, or maybe they connect a network of off-work nurses who need a bit of extra cash?
So population is going to provide us with new business opportunities,
Huge.
but is it also, and I guess it's also something for us to be watching in terms of market health and transaction volumes and things like that, because what we see with population is that, government policies to stop immigration or increase immigration or encourage babies being born and support women working, and juggling policies to get women both having kids and going back to work, they all impact on population.
They do. We have to keep an eye on this because we can have an influence on this, who we vote for, what's being chatted about. And we talked for so long about the environmental crisis of to overpopulation of the world. But 2060, it's going backwards again. That's the interesting thing. China's getting smaller, India's getting smaller, and Australia's definitely shrinking.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, like 2038, the biggest transition of wealth between my generation and the next one down. Now, do you reckon they're going to buy houses with that money, or are they just going to be so self-indulgent that they buy cars, travel, and everything else? What's going to happen to the population stock of Australia, the housing stock of Australia? Who's going to buy it? Now, my thesis is corporates, and that's where I go, this is where Amazon will start to buy back in. And, people who've had an Amazon Prime subscription by then for 15 years will happily pay their rent on Amazon Prime.
Yep. Why not?
And Amazon will be so good at all of the social interaction and the help desk. And imagine you're a property manager competing with Amazon down the road and their call center. And it's like, whoa, that's a scary thing. The second tech thing around population is the 2020 equivalent of the railway line. Now, this is a funny story because Australia has stuffed up infrastructure before.
No, never.
1865 and the railways. Now, I want you to think about the railway in Australia in the 19th century as being the connecting piece of infrastructure that ensured small towns in, outback New South Wales, Victoria, even existed.
Yep.
To enable the produce to get to market and people to get to and from. That's why we have an incredible rail network, most of which are bike trails now.
Yes.
I love those. But they used to be absolute links. The same thing today is the internet. And you know what? They stuffed it up in the 1860s as well. So 1860s, different states built different different gaps between the rails.
Yep.
So you get some great towns like Albury, Wodonga coming up because they needed to move all the freight off one train and move it to another train for the Victorian rail gauge and then move it off again when it got to Adelaide. If you go to the internet and check out a map of the NBN, so I get asked, what's going to happen to property values in Australia? How do I know? Where should I invest? What's going to happen? Yep. Go to a map of the NBN, which you can find online.
Yep.
And the purple bits, which is where they've got fast NBN.
Internet.
Those are the towns, because we're all going to move away from the big cities.
Yes.
We've just proven you don't need to, if you're in one of the sort of half of Australian jobs that are service kind of knowledge work or otherwise, you don't need to be in the city.
Yeah.
And talk about an amazing, largely unsupervised by adults, experiment in workplace sociology. COVID was it. And I'm working with businesses who have having amazing results with their staff spreading to the wind and now starting to rent and buy away from Melbourne.
Yeah.
And many of them are closer to their customers there. But the towns with the internet are key. It's the haves and the have-nots of Australia. Have you got a railway line? I feel an
urgent desire to jump online and research this straight away.
Go and get on it. And I'll tell you what, if there's public transport, I was looking at Adelaide yesterday and looking at the map, that's remarkable. So Port Pirie, Renmark, great places to be starting to do property investment, because now we see the two trends colliding, an aging population going, you know what, I'm done with the city and the kids have grown up. I've got a 19-year-old, he's moving out next year for sure. Why would I stay here? Well, I mean, I love Melbourne and the arts and all those kind of things, but I can trade this place down to an investment property and a house in a rural part of Australia
Yep.
And probably will.
Yes.
So that's mega trend number one, population.
Population.
Think of the aging population and think of where they're going to live. And that's opportunity galore as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. What's the second megatrend?
Megatrend number two is the shape of work.
Okay.
So this is going to affect, well, commercial real estate agents, obviously, but it's going to affect us all in the shape of our jobs. And some of us are better at this than others. Now, the real core dilemma to start with is that people of my age, 57, don't believe that learning is part of my job.
Don't you?
Two phases in life, Kylie.
Yep.
The learning phase, and once you've left school,
you're through it. You're done.
Reading books, sitting down and thinking, drawing stuff, that's over. That's kids stuff.
Okay.
I'm an adult now. I don't need, if I had $1 for every real estate principal who's bragged to me they don't read, I don't need to. Don't need to know everything I need to know. It's all about the people, bricks and mortar and people.
Oh no, stop, you're hurting me. Yeah.
That's not going to work. And what we've got, luckily, is a generation coming through who are lifelong learners.
Yes.
Absolutely natural to them. They don't, they've had to keep up, even just to keep up with Fortnite or to keep up with Minecraft. These kids are on YouTube learning the whole time. And that we've created a generation of lifelong learners. They're going to be fantastic. I'll tell you what, they're going to be really annoyed having to work for the 40 to 60-year-olds who believe they know everything already. So that's kind of work's going to change, because there's no question you're going to have to keep learning new software. You're going to have to keep learning new laws, new regulations, new compliance, new skills, new conversations, new technology constantly for the next 20 years. And that I know I've just put a few of your listeners right off saying that, because they go, can we just stop? Can we just stop?
My listeners are pretty cool. I think they all get it. I think they are readers, and I think they probably are all learners, and that's why they're listening. But yeah, I think it's, as an industry, it's going to be, it's going to be something we really need to get our brains around.
And now let's hear a word from our sponsors. For almost 16 years, Direct Connect has made moving easy for over 1.2 million renters and homeowners by arranging connections to a wide range of services, from electricity and gas to internet and pay TV. With a national team of local account managers who are experts in the industry, Direct Connect are there to support your real estate business with competitive rewards for every successful connection, plus an industry-leading rewards program. The connection process is simple, and Direct Connect's always-on guarantee ensures your customers will be connected on the day they move in. Direct Connect offers a range of market-leading suppliers, and Direct Connect has now made it even easier than ever to send connections, directly integrating with MRI Software's Property Tree. So in just a few clicks while processing a tenancy, you can send the connection details through and get your customers connected. To make the right connection and find out how Direct Connect can make moving easy for you and easy for your customers, visit agents.directconnect.com.au or call 1300 558 169.
I think too, though, that like traditionally, the way we were taught to learn, because I'm a little bit behind you, but the way we were taught to learn was sort of quite dense and intense, whereas now it's something that happens as easily as breathing. Like if you're reading anything, it happens all the time.
It has to be snackable.
Yeah.
I'm part of a startup that is working in the learning space, and getting large content down to snackable chunks that fits on a mobile phone screen is quite the art.
Yes,
if it can't be consumed over the time it takes to drink a almond latte, then not much use to people. So that's just kind of learning design, those kind of things. But yeah, one of the dilemmas of the industry today is it's in this tremendous transition period. So we've had the before, which was life, and property was, nobody can even remember the last time property went downhill. And you ask a young Australian, I mean, they haven't faced a recession like this since about the 1990s. There's nobody knew how to do it.
Yeah, GFC, that was was ages ago.
And it didn't really affect Australia for very long.
No.
So think of this in the big arc, the mega trends. This is kind of a transitionary period, and work's transition from what it was, a place you went, to a thing you do. We're in the middle of it. So it's confusing and ambiguous, and there's not a kind of opening the door, closing the door, and everything's changed. We're in the messy middle bit, which is why it's kind of confusing along the way. But what people need to think about, particularly right now, I know a number of people with agencies who are absolutely relying on the value of their agency for their retirement plan. That's why you need to think megatrends. Because if you're going to sell your agency, whether it's, rent roll dominated or otherwise, in the next 5 to 10 years, these megatrends are going to bite you. Have you shown any kind of automation, any productivity obsession with your agency? Oh, no, I didn't want to spend the money on that because it's all cash out of my pocket when I'm retiring, and I've got the Range Rover to pay off, and, the house at Portsea and all those kind of things. Is like, well, okay, your agency is not going to be worth $1 squillion when you retire anymore. In fact, probably worth nothing.
No. It's going to get broken up and sold for the sum of its parts. Huge
tragedy. Because these young agents coming through, these kids who've trained on Minecraft and Fortnite, who are into collaboration and learning and watching YouTube to work out how to get stuff done, they're going to win. They're going to kick ass. It's going to be, and that's great, but it's scary for us old folk, that's for sure. So
little confronting.
Shape of work. And I don't think people are going to go back to the office, to be honest. If I look at the list of big American tech leaders who are not going back to the office, not forcing people back into the, so the big sign and the lovely big flash premises downtown agency office, not going to be relevant in 5 years' time. So start now. If your lease runs out soon, don't renew it.
No, it's look at some shared space, or look the shape of work to me that seems really interesting that I've seen too. I can't tell you the number of property like principals that I've spoken to who have not been able to see, who have complained that they're having trouble with their property management team because they, young people don't want to work, but in fact won't let older women who might have school-age kids work because they can't do the 8 till 7 that's required to property manage properly. And then you think, well, what COVID's actually shown us is that you can be flexible and you can combine work and home, and you can have people accountable to key outcomes and let them manage the timing around that. And so the shape of work in real estate, the lesson that COVID's taught us is that we can get a lot more flexible and creative about how we employ people and the type of people that we're employing for different roles, because actually it's been that command and control thinking that has limited us or limited the industry in what it thought was possible.
It is. You couldn't have actually forced a group of middle-aged old white guys in managerial roles to undertake an experiment like COVID delivered us for all the money in the world.
No.
Now, the people who are clamoring, let's get back to the office, are those micromanagers. Now, they're not very good at measuring productivity at all, or thinking laterally about an untapped workforce.
Yeah.
Who could work between 10 and 3, for example.
Yeah.
And probably get a lot more done between 10 and 3 than a typical bloke turning up for his latte at 8 o'clock in the morning, or, whatever it is. And poor management is at the root of Australia's biggest productivity issues. So you've got a group of people who are good at checking the role. They can tell if you're present or not. And they think that's management, right? Oh yeah, the seats are, yep, all the desks are full, up and down, all good.
Yep.
The second level of sophistication is, are they doing something? Are they active?
Yeah.
And well, yes, they've got a computer screen open. I am now judging them to be productive. Level 3 of sophistication of the traditional Australian manager. It's my cat complaining in the background that I've poorly managed their food. Are they stressed? Are they busy? Are they kind of leaning in? Are they like? And literally, managers are walking up and down the aisle like they were 100 years ago, just checking. Are they busy? Are they stressed? Yes, it's good. They've got no idea if they're productive and focused on outputs, Kylie. None.
No.
And we need those people to retire and go to the beach and get the hell out of workplaces because they're no longer relevant. They're dinosaurs. And I'll give you the list of people who's not going back to work. Facebook, Dropbox, Zillow, Goldman Sachs, Slack, MasterCard, Shopify, Google, Twitter, ThoughtWorks, my own company.
Yep.
And then you go, but they're all foreign companies, Nigel. They're down here in Australia, we're bricks and mortar, people to people. Well, Telstra, not going back to work. You know what?
No.
PEXA, Property Exchange Australia, they don't have the need to go back to work. That'll be flexible. And let's be fair, there are people who need to get out of their tiny flats in Carlton and Melbourne with no heating and no internet and into a workplace to be productive. Great, make spaces for them. ANZ Bank, National Australia Bank, Atlassian, Australia's most highly capitalised digital business. No, not going back to work. Don't need to. They've figured out they can work remotely. Australia Post, Invato, TransferWise, they're one of those neo-tech, fintech people. Don't be a dinosaur.
No. So how is that going to impact property? So that's going to radically change our cities, isn't it?
It is. It's going to radically change the value of towers, that's for sure.
I feel an awful lot of refurb work coming on.
It's not a light switch. It's not going to happen overnight because leases last 10 years.
Yes.
So this is just going to start winding it down, and then people can afford to get away and we'll convert those buildings into other things. I also think the most precious room in new builds particularly, but in homes, is going to be the home office.
Yes.
They're like number one feature to build in a home or be developing in some way in a property. Home office, great connection, door that locks. Wow, what an asset.
If I was building a new residential tower now, as well as the obligatory cafe and, concierge area and all that sort of stuff, I would actually be putting like almost not a WeWork, but a shared office space into it, like a shared workspace.
Oh, completely. And there's that opportunity to do so. Those are going to be the lifestyle assets that a generation of workers expect. So another interesting thing that'll happen, I think, if people look at the data, and we did this at REA Group when I was there, we did this little experiment, is we got the postcodes of where everyone lived. It's one of our famous hack day things, right? And we said, I wonder if people are like clustered together around Melbourne as a city.
In terms of if I work somewhere and I'll live close?
Well, the biggest cluster was in Richmond, where the head office was. People had moved to be close to the office to avoid the dreaded Melbourne commute, which is 45 minutes an hour easily for many, many people. Well, we discovered that were clusters of people who
Melbourne and commuting, you guys are complete amateurs. I'm from Sydney. You come here, we'll show you how to do that properly.
Yes. But we discovered there were clusters and we went, you know what, if we just got an old shop or something in commercial real estate that wasn't leased out at the moment, we could have a little place where people could gather, like a satellite office. They could hang out with people from the same, not necessarily the same work team, but from the same company and enjoy the culture and the vibe and the lunchtime conversation. Maybe if they've got toddlers at home, get away from them for a period of time.
Sometimes that's good.
And shorten their commute to 10 minutes instead of an hour. And that became of real interest to us, this satellite office thing. And I think that'll be a thing in the future as well, because it's not hard to plan for in the data, that's for sure. Australia Post's experience at this has been fascinating. I don't know if you've noticed. Have you got the Australia Post app on your phone?
Oh, I haven't.
Well, the consequence of being locked down as I have, and I've got quite a lot of things I've bought online, and Australia Post has been the delivery partner in many cases. Great app.
Yep.
Now, how they've solved the nightmare of early on of that rise in e-commerce, meaning an exponential rise in delivery demand, is by looking on maps, probably on realcommercial.com.au or something, and finding empty spaces that can become network nodes.
Okay. So it's like hub and spoke kind of thinking, isn't it?
It is. And then little hubs and spokes at the ends of those. So parcels can be swapped without coming to a central facility.
Yep.
And this is how they solved delivery, is by doing multiple networks. And there's that kind of creative thinking that real estate needs to do as well. Do you need a giant hub anymore? No. But little nodes and, staying connected and those kind of things, really, really important. So, yeah, that's my thinking on the shape of business. I think, or the shape of work, I guess. The answer's not easy for everyone. It's not a uniform answer either. There are different jobs and different companies where you will need to go back to work. But everyone should think about it, no question. And
but the question too is, do you need to go back to work from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday? Like, do you need to jump into the car or jump onto the tram or the train or the bus at, 7:45 or 7:30 in the morning and lose an hour and a half of your day to be at a particular spot at the same time that everyone else is going to be at that particular spot and press the button of the lift at the same time that everyone else presses the button of the lift and wait to catch COVID on the way, or spend 3 hours waiting for the lift because there are only 4 allowed in the lift at a time. But do we do that, or do we actually start to think? And I think the human side of it is extraordinary, because I remember when my kids were little, just raging because if I could do a 38 or 40-hour week from Monday to Thursday, and it would have been, and it had been acceptable, and my husband could have done Tuesday to Friday, then we could have only had 3 daycare days, and we both would have had a bit of time. You'd have time up. Like, you can just get a lot more creative. Yeah.
And you've got to ask yourself, why doesn't that thinking change over time?
Because that's not the way we do it.
And this is why I'm a social scientist, is going, okay, I'm now really fascinated about what are the psychological reasons why old white guys won't change the rules of work.
Yes.
And it comes down to core fears, Kylie. So those Jungian theories of that inner child in you that was triggered in some way about being left behind or being judged or otherwise, that's what's causing it. And look, that's why we're in these messy times. I swear.
Oh dear. The psychology really of old white guys. And a day or two after the inauguration, there's so much context there, isn't there?
I know. I loved the inauguration because I lived in America for nearly 5 years, and my son is American. I got a little bit of a stake in it. Yep. I shed a tear with Lady
it was
Gaga.
Awesome.
It was just fantastic because
she nailed it.
Such hopes for that economy actually recovering, and they were setting a pretty dirty precedent globally for behaviour in democracies, which I wasn't pleased about. So
no, I don't.
Yay, turn it around and give it a go. So
go, Joe.
Third megatrend, Kylie.
Yep,
the shape of our businesses. So this has been changing for a long time, and COVID has accelerated this considerably.
Mm-hmm.
I still talk to a lot of people who divide the world into offline businesses, bricks and mortar, hand-to-hand, face-to-face, all those kind of things, and a lot of real estate like that.
Mobile phone. I don't need tech because I just call people on my phone.
And then there's the clicks people who are just, like me, like virtual reality property portals and mobile apps and data and AI and all the things I'm fascinated by. Now, the truth is, it's not one or the other. And we used to think about this at REA Group, realestate.com.au. Was it an online thing or an offline thing? Oh, it's not offline, it's online. We're Australia's biggest online portal and one of the biggest online portals in the world. We're online.
Mm.
Go to an open for inspection. What have people got in their hands? Got a
Printer?
mobile phone with your app open on it, mate.
Yep.
Why is the app open and they're at an open for inspection? Well, it's because they're getting such poor information from the person managing the open for inspection. They're just revisiting it on the app.
Yes.
And it's only when you get that acceptance that this entire industry is O to O, online to offline, that we will transition it to a better place.
Well, Tom Panos says that, doesn't he? He said, online and offline has to go online. Oh, sorry, inline. You have to get everything working together. It's not one or the other.
Very much so. And, I think I see this globally. I see, people like Amazon producing Amazon Health for their own people. Good timing too, which is just it's an app now. Oh, okay. So it's an online app. It's Dr. Google telling them their symptoms are X, Y, or Z. They should take a medicine of a particular type. No, they've integrated humans into it as well. Call centers, nurses on call, ability to dispatch a nurse and it's only for the privilege of employees. Wow, I tell you what, that could revolutionise healthcare in America.
That could revolutionise it in Australia.
Well, do you know what became possible in lockdown?
You could see a doctor on over a Zoom or over a call.
You could have an intelligent conversation with your doctor without waiting 20 minutes in a COVID-ridden waiting room.
Yep.
And the world didn't end.
Yes.
So those are tremendous opportunities. And, I talk a lot about Amazon. I am amazed by them. They've done an incredible job in Australia, and they are really good at logistics, and they will be in the housing industry at some stage. So you need, if you're an agency in Australia, you need to be as good as Amazon at e-commerce, at operations, at running a business, at hiring, all those kind of things. Because we know they crushed the bookstores of America. I was there when the Barnes and Nobles and all those kind of things started to shut down, and we hit Borders. We had them in us. Angus and Robertson. You remember Angus and Robertson?
Oh, vaguely, yeah.
Hundreds of jobs lost because they built giant warehouses full of books and shipped them out within hours. It was incredible. So this is the insight for me. And it's from another book I read last year by a guy called Douglas Rushkoff called Team Human. And he's really amazing. He talks about the impact in a people-to-people type of industry of keeping it human as well as using tech. And so it turns out there are more bookstores in America today than there were in 1996.
Okay.
Those bookstores are more profitable than they were in 1996. And a friend of mine in New Zealand just bought a bookstore.
Right.
And is this crazy talk? What's going on? This is Amazon. They're going to get crushed,
it's quite pleasurable to buy a book in a bookstore.
There is 4 factors to success of those bookstores, and we've got several of them here in Melbourne. We've got the Avenue Bookstore. We've got Readings. I love going there. 4 factors which can be applied to real estate. Community.
Yep.
They are a place where people meet.
Yes.
Curation. The people who work there are great at helping you find presents, lists, and they publish those in an email newsletter. Yep. So they're curating content. They're curating housing. You should, you might be, in 5 years, you'll be in an investment stage. Stop you making a bad choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people want advice. Advice is valued.
Yeah.
Convening. It's a place for book clubs to meet.
Okay.
And have a coffee and have a chat. And collective. The industry, the Booksellers Association was pivotal in the success of those bookstores, sharing the secrets of how to make money against the giants.
Right.
So we need in real estate to get those 4 factors humming. Yes. And really the tough ones I feel sorry for are the ones who've got big. The equivalent of the Barnes of Noble in Australian real estate, got a lot at stake and a lot to worry about.
And that's something we've seen in sort of the last couple of years, isn't it? And I find this an interesting trend that we see. What I saw when I was doing some work with Open Agent and looking at the data that they had, it's that we're seeing right at the moment a separation of the bigger agencies who are better led, going to that point you made at first, who have sort of better structures and are better at the tech and have, are better at managing change and have, different leadership styles, that they're growing really quickly and they're becoming bigger offices with more agents in them, and they're separating from the pack of the mum and dad operators inside real estate in terms of how much market share they're winning. So you think that they're actually also going to come under a bit of stress?
They are. I mean, managing something as it gets bigger and bigger is harder and harder because people got to remember the essence of management is not managing the individuals. So we do the maths on this. It's pretty interesting. So you start out with a lovely little boutique agency. It's just the 5 of you. You quit where you were. It's like, that was bullshit. Yep. The commission split was terrible. Blah blah blah. We're going to start out on our own and work out of our cars. So there's 5 people there. But if you're the senior person in charge, you're not just managing the other 4, you're managing those 5 people and the relationships between them. That's the task. That's the scope of your management.
Yeah.
So that's 5 people, 4 is 20. There's 10 little things you've got to manage. The 5 humans and their relationships with each other. So that's okay. Like 5 people, I can get up in the morning, I can manage 10 things throughout the week. What happens to that mass when you get 12 agents? Now, you're a mathematician. You do the numbers on this. So
no, I can't. I'm not a mathematician. I'm a journalist.
There we go.
Don't ask me to do the maths.
So the formula is n times n minus 1. So 12 times 12 minus 1 is 11, is 132, divided by 2, because the relationships, we don't want to count them twice, right?
No.
You just see that's 66. So you only really kind of doubled the size of your little agency team, but you went from managing 10 little, Billy doesn't get on with Jenny. Don't put them on the same listing. That's no good. She's really good at marketing and so is he, and they argue all the time. That's what managers have to hold in their heads, right? That constant knowledge. You get 12 people, they're managing 66 of those relationships. And that's where exponential complexity comes in. And that's why it gets harder and harder to run bigger agencies. Honestly, if you get to 15, that's the limit of human capacity.
Right.
You need to really think hard about how you're growing your agency from there. There's a number called Dunbar's number, which is 150.
Yes.
That should be your absolute maximum. That's the proven historical maximum of the size of a group.
Can be.
We heard it. It's from the 50s, interestingly. A guy called Robin Dunbar, English psychologist, went to visit businesses who were different. And he went to Bill Gore's business in America. He made Gore-Tex. He was a scientist. And as a scientist, he'd found any project he went on that had more than 150 people working on it never delivered a result.
Okay.
So Bill being a practical kind of nerdy bloke, said, you know what? Never going to be more than 150 people working on any one thing. And he built his buildings in this lovely industrial park with only 150 car parks per building.
Right.
So when we have to start a new division.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the law of numbers, and that's a really important constraint as those new businesses emerge. Don't get too big too fast. You'll find it very hard.
As a real estate agent, you know you need to be doing more content marketing. But creating posts for social media, creating videos and reports is hard work, lots of hard work, and it takes time. So that's why you need HomePrezo. If you're a typical agent posting 1 or 2 social media posts a week, HomePrezo can save you between 75 to 100 hours a year. How many more properties could you sell if you had that time back? HomePrezo can help you create engaging, informative videos about how the property market in your local suburb is performing. Plus, it makes creating suburb reports, rental videos for landlords, and social media infographics an absolute piece of cake. If you can type in a suburb or type an address, you can create a Prezo using HomePrezo in just a few minutes. Listeners to the PropTech Podcast receive a 14-day free trial. Now that's twice as long as the normal free trial. So go to homeprezo.com.au and click the sign up button and use the code PropTech to get your extended free trial. Or click the link in our show notes.
So you can't hide in the middle or in the small side. You need to be embracing the technology and improving your business and thinking about the shape of both work in your business and the technology that you're introducing to make it easier and more streamlined and to expand your options.
Exactly.
Yep.
I'm pleased to say this is the subject of my book, Productivity, effectively.
Which will be launched when?
You'd think COVID
you have to finish writing it.
Write it, wouldn't you? But no, that's exactly it. Is that there's break points in companies. 2 of you working together as a partnership. Gee, that's easy. You add a third, and the dimensions have changed considerably. It's always 2 against 1. Yep. You'll get over that by agreeing really, things that are at the next level of capability. We'll get a chat. We'll use WhatsApp as well as email because email's too slow because it can't keep everyone in the loop. So the next big split is 12. Sort of 12 to 15 because now nobody knows what it used to be great. Oh, we're in the office together. Everyone knew what listings
really tight
we were working
team.
on. Yeah, all that kind of. Something happens at 15 people that you have to divide up the functions and the structures and get better tech. Oh my, you know what? We should get a CRM. I
don't know if you'd have a CRM before you got to 15.
I don't know what customers you're talking to, mate. Like we just can't keep them in our mobile phones anymore.
Oh no.
And the trick and then it goes 50. So it's 3, 15, 50, 150. And the secret is to work one level more grown up than where you are.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
So all the things you talked about investing in tech and org and culture and clarity of goals and all those kinds of things, you play the game one level above where you think you are and you'll be fine. So yeah, that's the secret. And then back to the bookstores, it's just there's new rules. There's new rules. And these Rushkoff's rules are fascinating when you think about real estate. So rule number one is make everyone rich.
Okay.
Don't go into real estate thinking you're just going to make yourself rich.
Right.
Figure out how to make everyone rich.
The pie can be bigger.
The purchaser, the tenant, the staff, everyone rich. And along the way, you'll get rich too. Number two, no externalities. Do not pass the costs of things off to other people. Make sure you think of all of those things along the way. And then, we're terrible at that in terms of climate change, of big companies just putting their pollution in the river and suddenly the taxpayer pays. Transparency of process. We underestimate how important that is. And that's really the underlying driver of the lack of trust in real estate in Australia, which is still... do you know what? If I was starting in real estate, and I never will, because I'm not that good, just not that sort of a people person, to be honest.
I don't like houses and I don't like people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love houses. Imagine being the real estate agency that were known for being trusted.
Yeah.
Because
there are agents out there who are. Yeah.
7% of Australians trust a real estate agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
The research comes out every 2 years, and
sometimes it nudges up to 9.
Oh my God! So therein lies the opportunity. The strategy is to be the trusted agent. You'd get 50% of the market overnight.
Yeah. So
you have to understand what drives trust. It is relationships. It is the long-term stuff. And look, Tom Panis talks about that all the time. He's desperately a real expert on that subject. Be a family business is rule number 4 in Rushkoff's rules of how to survive in 2021.
Yep.
And what he means by that is be a business your teenager would join.
Oh gosh.
Because teenagers
that's a high bar.
They're like an artificial intelligence of what's important in the world. They're dreadfully judgmental.
Yes.
But they roll up in an AI algorithm everything that's important to modern consumers. Are you transparent? Do you have a purpose? Do you treat people well? Are there opportunities in your business? Do you have ethics and morals? Because and they're such harsh judges of it. I've worked in places where my teenager would not join.
Yes, I think we all have. Yeah.
And I love it. ThoughtWorks is a place Noah would join tomorrow because of our work around not-for-profits, gender diversity. We're the most diverse tech consulting company in the world. Won awards for that. And he'd jump tomorrow, no problem.
Yep. Awesome.
And that's what real estate needs to think about is, okay, would a teenager join your company? Because you also need them because they're this fortnight resilient learning generation.
Yep.
Be great to have them. Embrace diversity. Don't trend towards the average, and particularly thinking of an aged world. If you're going to deal with aged customers in the next 10 years, don't hire all teenagers.
No, no, maybe not.
Why not consider hiring someone who's 70?
Yeah.
And part-time. They don't want to work freaking 8 hours a day anymore, but get a team of them online to manage some properties for you.
Yeah. Yep. Nobody
in 2021 wants to be a customer, Kylie.
No one does?
No. Customer, I don't want to be your customer because I know what I'm a number. If I'm a customer in your CRM and you just treat me like a number, I want to be a human.
Yes.
Now, I want to be part of your tribe because you kind of seem cool and I'm interested in the stuff, the stories you're telling and the things you're doing and what you're doing in the community. My values align with yours and I'd like to be part of that tribe. That's cool. But please don't make me your customer because the era of customers is over. It's been... it was some benefits. People treated people slightly better, but it's so cynical now.
Yes.
That customer numbers and those kind of things. No, this is where fintech is murdering the big banks, right? So you take Up, an Australian bank that is expanding faster than they can control.
Yep.
Why are they doing it? Because they treat their customers with respect. They only do a couple of things. They do them really well. They're easy to get on board with. Customer service is fantastic, but they're so human in what they do, in their communications out. It's very human and personable, which you can do at scale.
Yep. And my teenager actually moved all his banking over to them. So, yeah, living testimony of that.
What a perfect example of would it be a family business,
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, we forget, they're teenagers now. No, they're mainstream consumers in about 5 years' time.
Yes.
And if Up were able to then add real estate into their proposition, instant trust.
Yes. Yeah.
They are Australia's most trusted banking brand.
So I'm conscious of time, Nigel, but this has been fascinating.
It's only one more rule, Kylie.
Have you got one more rule? Okay, bust out.
Find the others. Hang
the
out
others. Okay.
with people like you who think differently about the future. Listen to this podcast and come back and hang out and find your tribe, because not everyone is an elderly white male trying to flog their business so they can head into retirement and doesn't want to change a damn thing in real estate. There's some firebrands in Australian real estate.
There are.
And they're going to change it.
Yeah, well, and they are. That's fantastic. Now, do you know what I really love the most about this conversation is that even though we've been talking about the tech trends or the trends that are going to affect everything, we actually haven't talked about anything like AI or smart homes or blockchain or any of that. It has actually been all human stuff.
It's all humans. Now, how we use that cool tech is far more behavioral than, and that's a good thing. Tech kind of goes into the background. AI, you don't even notice that you are being controlled by it right now, whether it's your search results or whether it's...
Well, you get frustrated when you're not, when it doesn't show up. And then it's like, oh, God.
Tools for being more human, allowing you to get away from the drudge and into the world of looking after relationships. And let's solve some loneliness. Let's change property management to be more humane. And
quick last question. Do you think, how you were saying that the corporates are going to start to step up into property ownership?
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to have a role around affordability or...
It's going to be really interesting. I don't think the generation who are going to inherit property empires from the boomers like me in the 2030s are really going to be so precious about price. They just want to get their hands on the cash. So
yeah, that's right.
Amazon becoming a massive property trust and buying 100,000 homes in Australia to rent out to that generation using their Amazon Prime accounts.
Yeah.
They'll easily, oh my God, the levels of cash that these companies are going to hold by then. America is awash with cash looking for opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more fundamental than shelter.
Yes.
So will it make it more
safe.
affordable in the end? They've all got an eye for a dollar, haven't they? So it might be less unaffordable would be a way of saying
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Nigel, it has been absolutely fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much. I knew this was going to be an awesome conversation.
We have fun, don't we?
We do. I can't wait to catch up with you again.
We'll see you in the real world somewhere.
Yeah, well, I'll be down in Melbourne soon, so hopefully I'll catch up with you then.
That'll be awesome. Very cool.
Lockdowns, border closures, all of that stuff notwithstanding.
That's the story of this year. It's not going to change quickly, I can tell you.
No, 2021's a bit of a PS, isn't it?
Yeah.
PS, it's still hanging around.
And that's a great chance to think about fixing and updating your business.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Nigel.
Pleasure.
So seriously, how awesome and interesting are those trends? Population, future of work, and the future of business. They're three really human trends that are going to be changing the real estate and property industry significantly and impacting the technology we adopt and our expectations around service levels and the businesses that we want to deal with. Now, a conversation with Nigel always goes in an unexpected but fascinating direction, and the interview could seriously have gone on for hours. The three books he mentioned were Post-Corona, From Crisis to Opportunity by Scott Galloway, Team Human by Douglas Rushkoff, and The Future of Us by Liz Allen. And I've included links to them in the show notes. Now, if you have enjoyed this episode of the PropTech Podcast, we would love you to tell your friends or drop me a line either via email, LinkedIn, or on our Facebook page, which you can find at Kylie Davis PropTech. You can follow this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, and Anchor, and where all good podcasts are heard. And I'd really love it if you could subscribe or leave us a review. I'd like to thank my audio support, Charlie Hollins and Sam Hollins, and the fabulous Jill Escudero, and our sponsors, Direct Connect, making moving easy, Smidge, official wines of the PropTech community, and Home Presso, now part of ActivePipe, and making the creation of your marketing content easier than ever before. Now, if you are a PropTech, make sure you join the PropTech Association of Australia and join like-minded people who are passionate about the property industry and committed to improving experiences in how we buy, sell, rent, manage, build and finance property. Go to proptechassociation.com.au. Our PropTech Awards are about to launch and you don't want to miss them. So thanks everyone. Until next week, keep on PropTeching.